Good morning, everyone. So glad you could join us here on Mary Phil's Gardening Advisor on this going to be a beautiful weekend, I think.
Well, we need that. It's been a little chilly out.
I know. It's been some crazy weather. This whole year has been kind of crazy weather-wise.
Yeah, but you're right. It's going to be a gorgeous weekend, so I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. It's a great time to plant, and we've got a great show for you. So, because not only is it a great time to plant, but, you know, there are certain things that need to get done before winter sets in. So today we're going to help you figure those out.
Yeah, and I tell you, like I said, the timing couldn't be better because it is going to be such a nice weekend. It's a great time to get out there and work in your yard. So we're going to be talking about a whole host of different little tips, everything from talking a little bit about bringing tropical plants inside, planting bulbs, fertilizing trees and shrubs, a little bit of weed control. So we got about 10 different little tips here to share with you today. But these are all things that can be done now or in the few weeks ahead to really get your garden in the best possible shape before the really cold weather hits a little bit later this season.
Great. And of course, later on in the show, we will be taking your phone calls. So if you have any questions, be sure to save those up and get ready to call, and we'll let you know when that happens. So before we get started, a couple of quick announcements. Want to let you know what's happening at Maryfield Garden Center, because there's always something fun happening at Maryfield Garden Center. Something really exciting coming up this coming Thursday. We're very excited about this because this is our third annual Ladies' Night Out. We are kicking off the holiday season. From 6 to 9 p.m. at all 3 of our stores, there is going to be lots and lots of fun. Shopping, we're going to have wine tastings, we're going to have appetizers. We're even going to, I know at Fair Oaks, we're going to have some Christmas carols, so lots going on. So you brought a couple of pictures to see here.
I do want to invite all the ladies down for this event. It's a lot of fun and everything, so these are some pictures from if you had been there last year, you might have seen.
That's right.
So this is just sort of entice you in. And our first picture really shows the outside of the store at our Fair Oaks. If we can get a look at that, all lit up there at night, you know, trying to make it inviting. Of course, as you can see, the hours there are 6 to 9, but you know the days are so short. You know, it gets dark early and everything. So it's a very kind of elegant atmosphere that's there, fun and festive. And then what we're really trying to do, of course, is to bring you inside, where you're going to meet lots of friendly people there, having a good time. Like I said, looking at displays, the exhibits, enjoying the entertainment, doing a little shopping, you know, early Christmas decorating. So it's it really is a great time. It's hugely popular. And hope to see you there. Absolutely.
Well, the stores just look fantastic, because if you've been in lately, you'll know that we've been transforming our stores into the Christmas holiday season, and so we hope you'll come by and take a look and enjoy all the Christmas decorating ideas. We've got new themes this year. We've got lots of gorgeous ornaments and decorations, and this is a great opportunity to be able to get the first crack at those.
Yeah. So. Well, a few people already started.
Oh, I know.
So get in there early, right?
But it is such a fun time of year. Speaking of decorating, on next Saturday, the 17th, we've got a couple of decorating classes for you at our Fair Oaks location and our Gainesville location. You can see at our Fair Oaks location, we're going to be talking about Christmas floral designs. Our very talented design team are going to show you some creative holiday arrangements with artificial greens, flowers, and berries. So it's a great opportunity to get a head start on your holiday season. And then at our Gainesville location, it'll be how to create a festive container garden. So if you've got a container garden that you've had, you know, on the porch throughout the year and you need to do something with it, it's a great way to change it over for the holiday season. So again, that's next Saturday, the 17th. So hope you'll take advantage of that. And of course, our holiday open house is coming up Thanksgiving weekend. I can't believe Thanksgiving is almost here.
It is, and I just realized that we just planned out everybody's next week.
We did.
Really,
we did.
Next
well,
week.
2 weeks actually, if you know.
Yeah, because I've got a big to-do list for you today.
Okay,
to work out in the garden.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So I've got this weekend occupied. You got the open house, decorating classes, the ladies' night out. Yeah. So you're booked.
There you go. All right. Shall we get started on ideas for what to do this winter?
And we'll start with the picture. That's a good idea. And I love this picture coming up here. It may not mean much to you guys out there, but what you're looking at there when it says don't move firewood, there is a whole public education program in effect. I don't know if you've heard about this. Is nothing new. It's been around. But the Forest Service, you know, the Park Service, a lot of the conservation groups are asking people to not transport or move firewood any further from a home than they need to. because one of the things that happens is when you're transporting firewood, whether it's for fireplace at home or if you're camping, that kind of thing, a lot of time you bring different forest pests along with it, harboring on that wood.
I'd really hate to see this guy come along.
Yeah, now that would pretty much scare anybody.
That's for sure.
But to a tree person, an arborist or something, when you look at that, what you're looking at is the emerald ash borer. The emerald ash borer is just an example of one of these pests. It was accidentally introduced into this country up into the Michigan area, from overseas, from its native lands in China. But what happens is that borer infests ash trees. Of course, we have a lot of the native population of ash trees here. They get in there and they feed on the cambium layer, and then the plant just gradually can't translocate the water. It shrivels up and dies. So what we end up doing in an effort to control these, they create a quarantine. It says you are not allowed to transport ash wood products or trees outside this quarantine area. Well, of course, that didn't work. Some trees did get transported into here to Virginia, and so for the last few years, most of northern Virginia, and it's spreading, has been under a quarantine saying you cannot transport or move ash products in this area. That's one example. There's also the thousand cankers disease that's affecting walnuts. And there's a whole list. I mean, you probably can't see this, but I printed this big list of different invasive pests and disease that can happen.
They happen.
So the idea is, to try to limit your transport and movement of firewood so that you limit the transport of these pests that go with it.
Right.
Now, one of the things that we do, of course, is we're kind of unique in that we offer kiln-dried firewood. So what we're doing is we are taking firewood, and it comes from outside the area and stuff, but what we'll do is we take that firewood and we put it into these baskets. These baskets go into a big wood kiln, and what it's done is it's heat treated, and that removes the moisture from it. And as we dry it down, it's all computer operated, we dry it down to the optimum, ideal, perfect moisture content, so that when you take it home, it lights easy. It generates more heat because you don't have all that moisture in there. It's actually safer in the perspective that there's less risk of creosote buildup with it.
Right.
And the other, kind of bring this full circle, if there were any insects or pathogens in there, basically it's heated to a point to kill them off. So there's a lot of good reasons, I guess, for using this firewood. Is my message.
And we have a lot of fires in our fireplace, and it is wonderful wood.
Right. And the best reason is because cold weather's coming.
That's right. Right. That's for sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back with some things to keep you occupied for the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back. We've got things for you to do. We're going to keep you busy for the next couple weeks.
Right. Well, we've had at least where I live, we had good freeze this week and everything going on. So, of course, one of the things that happens is if you have tropical plants in your landscape, and this is something I promote a lot because I love growing tropical plants like elfin ears and bananas and hibiscus and bougainvillea and mandeville and all these great plants, in the summertime for their gorgeous colors and the exotic look they lend to the landscape. But these are plants that are not going to survive outside through the wintertime. So the question sort of comes up, what do we do? And I'm going to start just using with some elfin ears as an example. And I show a picture here of what elfin ears can do for you in the landscape. This was what I call the before picture. It's a little hard to see in there, but I like to grow these elfin ears. They're up sort of the front of the walk, and you get this big dramatic look of the big flat leaves and everything that goes in there. But I guess, I can't remember, it was Tuesday morning, Monday, we had that freezing weather. The next thing happens, you wake up after freeze, and this is what they look like. Not so pretty.
Oh, no.
But there are different ways that you can deal with this as far as getting these plants through to the next year. What can happen? I mean, some people just, the plants die, and next year they buy new plants and just use them as annuals, and that's totally cool. That's acceptable. We kind of like that at the garden center. But the other way is you can store these through the winter time. And it's a pretty simple process. You can see what happens. I pulled them out of the ground, basically knock the loose dirt off of them and everything, clean all the withered leaves and that type of thing off of it. And this is what you're left with. Now these stumps, as I call them, they ideally want to be stored at temperatures of about 50 to 55 degrees in a dark location. And there are different ways of doing that also. So you can take those little stumps, and probably one of the best ways is then you can pack them away in some vermiculite. Actually, I brought, just for show and tell, you guys know vermiculite. We use that in potting mixes to loosen the soil and aerate it. But you can also take some vermiculite and possibly even a little bit of bulb dust. The bulb dust is sulfur primarily, and that sulfur helps to prevent the bulbs from rotting. So you can take a little vermiculite, bulb dust, kind of mix that together, and then take those stumps, as I call them, and put them into Ziploc bags and into cool, dark storage. I've had very, very good success with that. Those you saw, those elephant ears are into their second year now. Great. And everything. Really didn't have any losses on them. It's kind of dramatic. They looked sort of shriveled and stuff, but when I took them out, I basically, soaked them in water and started them over again. Okay. There are some people that are overwintering them live by actually putting them in water and keeping them inside their house. That's a little difficult. And I know Peggy's experimenting around with some different techniques also in her yard. So again, there's no one answer for everybody, but it's a neat thing to do. Now the other is I brought my banana plant in, just as another good example. Dug this up last night.
Definitely been hit by the frost there.
Now this plant was beautiful about 3 days ago. I was so proud of it, actually until Hurricane Sandy beat it up. But what happens with bananas, again, you can see this, they develop this thick stem over time and this almost bulbous type of root system that's down there. You can, let me get this out of the way.
There we go.
Essentially, this is the important part of the plant that we want to get down here. There's enough stored energy in here and with these roots that I can take this, I can overwinter it, and next spring take it and just plant that stump back in my yard. So with a banana, and I don't know if we can back up a little bit here to see, depending how much room you have to store these, essentially, if I just cut the top of it off,
timber.
Well, look at that. One leaf's going to give me trouble. He got bashful for TV. So I could take this whole, basically this stump, and put that into storage. If I don't have enough room, I can cut it off here, put that part into storage, and I can basically work the way down. So let's pretend I take this, put it into winter storage. Next spring, what will happen is the new growth starts from up here, and I end up with a taller plant. If I cut it down to a smaller portion, then I'm starting out the year with a shorter plant.
Gotcha. Oh, good point.
Yeah, and these don't require a lot of care. I take, our neighbor Bill. He basically just takes these, he knocks the loose dirt off them, and props them up against the wall of his basement downstairs. So you put in a basement, garage, something like that. Really easy to store. Right. Now another very popular tropical that you may know is the hibiscus. Hibiscus gets these beautiful, gorgeous blossoms and all these exotic colors. And of course, they love warm, sunny conditions. And again, I'm going to give you a couple different ways that you can consider overwintering these. These are the tropical hibiscus. They'll not live year-round. We do have some hardy ones, but if you have these beautiful colors and exotic flowers, it's going to be a tropical. It's going to need to come indoors. Now, if you have a sunroom kind of environment and you can bring that into really bright, sunny conditions, you can keep that plant actively growing, blooming, flowering, looking nice. If you're going to do that, one thing that happens a lot of times, the hibiscus, they are prone to things like white flies and mealybugs and aphids sometimes. And if that's plaguing your hibiscus or any of your house plants, then I recommend using these tablets, these fertilizer and insect control tablets. You can just basically put them down into the soil based on the size of the pot. The tablets dissolve and they're absorbed up through the plant and help keep insects from feeding on it. Now the other way you can deal with hibiscus, of course, is to store them in what we call a dormant condition. If you don't have a really bright, sunny, warm room, you could basically put it down in the basement or the garage. It's unheated. They're going to yellow, they're going to wither, the leaves are going to drop off of it. At that point, you're really just trying to get it to survive, and then next spring, you'd bring it out, prune it, fertilize it, and revive the plant. So you can do that with all kinds of plants. And I wanted to give out one little website.
Okay.
Kind of thing. There's, I guess this is a Facebook group, so you can go on Facebook and search under Virginia Palm Society and Exotic Tropicals. That's a bunch of people that are enthusiastic about growing tropicals. They share and exchange ideas and experiences on how they're getting to overwinter it.
Right.
So if you have, you know, because there's so many different ways of doing it, so many different plants, if you want specific information, that's a good place to go to share and exchange information.
That's great. And we, you know, we hope you are Facebook friends with us. It's, you know, Facebook is a lot of fun, being able to reconnect with people and that type thing. But we had a really cute post yesterday with our Facebook. So, you know.
Yeah, I heard we got like 50 likes.
Really?
And that
Cool.
was only like 4 in the afternoon. I hope we've got more.
So if you haven't seen it, go like us on Facebook at Merrifield Garden Center and take a look. We won't tell you what it is. We'll make you look for it, though. But very cute. We're going to take a quick break and come back with more. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Well, in addition to this being a perfect time of year to plant, it's a great time of year to fertilize. And I know there's lots of choices out there, so we've got some great tips for you.
They are. So again, these are all things that you can be doing now, or over the next couple weeks. Not super urgent here. But again, I'll just start out with a picture. I want to talk a little bit about fall fertilization. Because what happens essentially is we know that this time of year, even as the top growth is beginning to shut down, the roots continue to grow and develop. So I just put a picture of a black gum tree in here to kind of illustrate the point, if we can look at that. One of the things that happens when we look at trees, what we've learned over time, and we've learned a lot about them, is essentially they have these very extensive root systems, and that at least it's on my right, it might be your left, but the tree that's in leaf during the growing season, one of the things you'll notice is their root system on these really extends 2 or 3 times the height of the tree. The root system on an established tree like that reaches way out. And all the little roots that absorb the water and the minerals and nutrients, they're up there near the surface. They're really in the top 6-8 inches or so of soil. So one of the things that happens with that picture, you'll notice how all the grass, all the competition, and all the vegetation has been removed, and they've just created this big, huge mulch bed around it. And that's great, if you have the space and your landscape lends that, which you can do in an arboretum. It doesn't have much application in my townhouse development. But the whole idea there is to kind of reflect and show that all those roots are up near the surface, they extend way out, and because they're grabbing the water and nutrients, that's where we want to concentrate our efforts. But what will happen is, I put the picture in the dormant season where it's shed its leaves and it's going into winter, because the other point I want to talk about is even though the top growth stops, so as the leaves are shedding and falling off of your trees, the roots continue growing usually into about late December, January, depending on the weather that goes, the temperatures and all. So wait until your trees have shed their leaves, because right now you look at it, seems like half of them have leaves, half of them don't. But after they shed their leaves, that's the time, as a good time to go out and fertilize. You may not see the results because the tree's not actively growing, but it is absorbing and taking those nutrients up through the roots. So what we've done, we've formulated some fertilizers, at our stores and everything. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Let me just say, so the points I always emphasize, sort of recap, is one is you bring in these questions then of like, how much should I fertilize? What fertilizer do I want to use? Essentially, there's no absolute rules for that. On a young tree that's actively growing, you may want to fertilize it more frequently to accelerate and improve its growth. On an established mature tree, it may be less often. So that answer could be anywhere. You may fertilize as many as 3 times a year. You may fertilize once every 3 years, again, depending on the age and species of the tree that's there. And when you do fertilize, that old term of deep root fertilization is kind of gone by the wayside. What we recommend is essentially you want to broadcast the fertilizer around the root zone where those fine roots grow and develop. Now, what I was going to say as far as what fertilizer to use, we have formulated a couple different ones at the garden center. that Merrifield tree and shrub food, it's intended specifically for shade trees and evergreens. We're talking about plants that we really are not trying to promote flowers or blooms on it. So if you're talking about oaks, maples, pine, spruce, dogwoods, anything like that, this is a good choice to use. And Debbie's showing you the small container of it.
This is great.
Yeah, but it also comes in a 20-pound bag, and the instructions on there are very easy to use and follow. Now the other one, if you have flowering plants, and this could be anything from dogwoods and redbuds, you know, to azaleas, rhododendrons, if you're trying to promote good blooms on there, we recommend using the flowering plant food, which just basically has a higher phosphorus level in there to try to promote good blooms and good flowers. So again, that's available in a couple different sizes, you know, easy follow directions, but the point is, this is a good time to do it. You do a fall application, and if you want to, you could follow it next spring and do it, use same fertilizer, but just use it in spring if you want to promote a little more growth.
So handy.
Yeah, we recently just converted over to the plastic shaker can, so it is very easy to use.
Easy to store, easy to use.
Now the other, since we're talking about fall fertilization, is also you want to be fertilizing your lawn. I get a lot of people coming in because we've had this cold weather saying, is it too late? Is it too late? I'm like, no, 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 not at all. Our sort of cutoff date for fertilizing trees and shrubs usually goes to about December 15. So, you know, keep on going. The roots are growing, the roots are developing. You really want to pack the fertilizer in now this time of year because we're promoting the root system and root growth, even if you don't really see a whole lot happening in your garden.
Right. Okay.
So that was the Merrifield Premium is what we're recommending right now. And again, that's available in 20-pound bags or, you know, 4-pound boxes. Buy as much or as little as you need.
Right. How about winter weeds?
Winter weeds, again, yeah, nobody thinks, you know, we're all thinking like winter, it's cold, the days are short, you know, you're inside more. But guess what? There are weeds growing out there. Again, I brought a picture to show you. They're little tiny babies. They're not real noticeable, but I guarantee you if you look in my lawn, you're going to see them. And my guess is if you look around your lawn, you're going to see them as well. You just don't recognize these as weeds, but these are winter weeds, things like chickweed, bittercress, henbit, dead nettle, and they go through the winter time like this little baby plant. Then next spring, when we roll into about late March, April, suddenly these weeds are exploding out of the yard, popping up everywhere, and you're saying, my God, where'd these things come from? Well, they started now. So the thing is, this is so perfect, because this weekend, you know, we're going to be in the 60s today. They're talking about maybe even the 70s tomorrow. You can go out and treat these weeds now while they're young. Go out there. Weed Beater Ultra is just one of the products that do really well for you. Weed Beater Ultra or Speed Zone, they work when temperatures are as low as 50 degrees. It's a lawn weed killer, so it's not going to damage your grass, but it can kill these little seedlings before they have a chance to come in and mess up your yard.
Great. And prevent them?
Exactly. So this kills weeds. You want to take sort of the extra step. You can kill the weeds with like Weed Beater. You can put down an application. It's called Portrait, which is a weed preventer that will stop new weeds from coming in the rest of the winter.
Super. Okay, lots of great tips, and we've got more when we come back. Ah, the feeling of fall there with all the pumpkins and gourds and decorations.
And we still have a good selection of them at the store.
Yeah. It's, love the fall feeling. Love Christmas too, but love both of them.
Yeah.
Not enough time for either one.
You know, that's exactly it. I love the fall season. It's just too short.
Right.
And then once you set your clocks back, you know,
I know.
That's
At least we drove in light this morning instead of dark, so that was good. Okay, we've got some great tips for you, things that you need to be doing now to prepare for winter. And something that's really important that you need to do now in order to enjoy in the spring is plant bulbs.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like you say, you get caught up in the holidays and that kind of stuff, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, I should have planted them. So we're just going to start with some pictures, just try to inspire you a little bit, because you know everybody knows what tulips are and everything, but think forward, you know, to next spring and something. You know, you've been inside, the days are short, it's dark or something, then spring rolls along. You know, if you get to come home and have something like this, these gorgeous bright yellow tulips greet you, now that definitely lifts your spirit and everything. So I like this. I like this kind of use with bulbs where they're just kind of massed together, picking a single color. You group them in. You can pack them in dense. We're talking about, like, you know, you put 12, 15 per square foot, something like that, and get this really bold, dramatic display. And here, of course, that contrasts the red maple and everything. You know, that red and gold combination is unbeatable. So that's a really eye-catching way to use bulbs there and there. But bulbs can also just be interspersed in the flower border. Here again, early spring color. This would be fast forwarding to April time period where, you know, you've got the violas and the pansies coming up and the bulbs pushing their way through it, and some of the other spring bulbs. And this shows a little bit of variety also that goes on with tulips. I mean, there's just a tremendous selection that's out there. And then there's also, you can put bulbs into flower pots. Even if you don't have big garden beds, or if you like to be able to bring a little color up close, you know, on the porch or the patio, then you can even put bulbs into flower pots, and you would essentially pot them up now, put them, you know, into a protected area, meaning like, you know, buried in a mulch pile or leaf pile, or something like that. You'd want to protect them from the squirrels and voles and that kind of stuff. And then when you're ready for color, you reach in there, pull them out, and they'll start popping into bloom for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Peggy does a lot of that, as you can see, because this is in Peggy's garden here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what a nice effect again in spring. So our whole point is there's just unlimited options that can go on with these in terms of how you use them, where you use them. But the thing is, you need to be doing that now. Now, the one little thing I'm going to say about planting bulbs, this is fast forwarding to, let's say, about May. And it's a little hard to see, but in the background there's foliage of some old daffodils that have faded, because tulips, daffodils, the crocus, all are great spring bulbs. They come up, they bloom for a time, then the flowers fade, but you have to allow the leaves to remain behind.
Right. And that gets tricky.
Right. Those leaves will sit around then for the next 8 weeks or something, and there's really not a whole lot that's pretty about a tulip or daffodil when it's not flowering. So here again, this is Peggy's garden, but she's thoughtfully placed them to a little bit to the back of the border.
Right.
So now you have the phlox coming up and the Jacob's ladder coming up and these other perennials, and it kind of distracts or hides that foliage from behind. So that's something to think about. Or you can also use them as annuals. A lot of times people will just plant them, enjoy the flowers, pull them out of the ground, and then you're ready to go for next, you know, put some annuals in there for the summertime. So again, the whole point is plant them now. I just brought my little props for show and tell. All kinds of things out there. Tulips, because we love them. They're bright, they're colorful, they're pretty, but you know, daffodils and what else? I bring some allium. So selection is out there and it's great. Now, a couple things is you want to get them planted sometime between now and Christmas. That's kind of your time period to look at, but I say go ahead and do it now, because once we get into Thanksgiving, you know, you're into other things, you're cooking, visiting, traveling and stuff. So go get on it right away while you still have time and a beautiful weekend. Put them out there. When you're planting them, they want to go about 3 times deeper than the bulb is wide. So on a tulip, if the bulb is, I brought some loose bulbs in. If it's something like that, let's say it's about 2 inches across or something like that, then you want to plant them about 6 inches deep.
Let me hold that up so you can kind of see what we're talking about.
And it's nice to mix a little compost in there, because we have this heavy clay soil. If it's a new garden bed and dense clay, you definitely could mix some Maryfield planting mix in there, or some type of compost to break up the clay. Then the other, which I'll say is optional, not required, but if you put a little starter fertilizer in there, all fertilizer is going to do is it's going to make your bulbs a little bigger, the flowers a little more colorful. So mixing a little bit of compost and fertilizer in there, and then just get them planted.
Okay, how about keeping the critters away from them?
That's the other issue. That does turn people off sometimes on bulbs, because as much as we love them,
they love them more.
They love them more, exactly. So I've already mentioned, you know, like squirrels and voles and chipmunks and some of these animals that might dig them up and feed on them that way. Then also later in the year, like with tulips, you know, the deer can come by and feed on them. So if you want to plant bulbs, but you got that problem going on, there's a couple ways of addressing that. I brought in Bob-X and Repels-All as two examples. These are animal repellents, and essentially what you do is you would soak the bulbs in the repellent, allow enough time for them to dry, so you just dip them in the repellent, give that several hours for it to dry, and then you plant them, and what will happen, this stuff, none of it's poisonous, it's not toxic, but they just have these rotten, foul-smelling, foul-tasting or hot pepper that's in there. So if you get a little squirrel or somebody comes by and wants to go eat your tulips, well, this will...
Surprise!
We'll kind of turn them off on that.
Well, great ideas. So we've given you lots of things to think about, lots of things to put on your to-do list. So, and we're sure you probably have some questions too. So when we come back from this break, if you would like to give us a call, 703-387-1046. We'd love to answer your questions. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. It is phone call time. So if you have any questions, please give us a call, 703-387-1046. And I'm sure David will have the answers for you. So David, our first caller is...
If not, I'll make them up.
There you go. Our first caller is Laura, who's calling from Bowie, Maryland. Hi, Laura.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I can.
Okay. I do have a question. Just something that I do in the fall that I thought I would share. All my annuals, of course, got zapped last week with the cold weather, and I'm going to go out this afternoon and pull them out. And I've got all of those empty pots in my garage. So when I take them out, there's usually a little hole left by the root ball. So I enlarge that hole. I take the dirt from the hole, put it in the pot, and then I put the pot in the hole and cover it with mulch. And then in the spring, when I'm ready to plant, I just pull the pot out, put my amendments in, stick in my new plant, put the dirt from the pot around it, and my planting's done real quick and easy in the spring.
Yeah, that's a really neat idea, Laura, but I've got a better idea for you.
Okay.
Okay, after you pull your annuals out, you come down to the garden center, you buy some pansies and put those back into the holes. No, that's a great tip you have there, but you know, of course my job is to sell plants and encourage people, so I couldn't help but put that in.
I've got lots of pansies already in my yard, but that's my job for this afternoon.
Okay, yeah, that's been on my to-do list, you know, as well. I don't know if we get done this weekend or not. All right, but thanks. That really is a great idea, and it's a nice way to make your gardening easier.
Okay, thanks for your show. I appreciate it. Enjoy it every week.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye. Okay, let's see. Nancy is calling from Indian Head, Maryland. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good morning. My question is, I have a lot of wood ash from burning the stove, and I like to put it on the lawn. I like to know if that's a good idea and how much to put on there and what is it going to do.
Yeah, that is a good idea. That's a very good thing to do. The obvious, and this might, what I just have to say is, of course, is make sure that, you know, there's no coals or embers or anything like that in it. So make sure it really is no risk of any kind of fire damage. But wood ash, what it does is a couple things. One is it acts as a liming agent. It will raise or elevate your pH the same way almost as if you're applying lime. That's generally fine in a lawn environment. That could be potentially a little bit of an issue in acid-loving plants and gardens. So, but on your lawn, that's great. It also tends to be very high in potassium or potash that's in there, which is a nutrient that you find in fertilizers and a lot of times used in winterizer type fertilizers. So I think that's really good. As far as application rates, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's hard for me to think you'd have so much that becomes a problem.
Does that turn your grass green, or is it helping the roots, or will it improve the soil?
Yes, to all the above. I mean, what it does by improving the pH balance, that makes the nutrients more available to the plant. The potassium in particular, we find it thickens the cell walls up so that plants become a little more resistant to temperature extremes and insect and disease problems there. You're not going to see a lot of fertilizer benefit. You're not going to see the grass green up, and I don't want to necessarily say using it as a substitute, but it's helpful to the plants, and it's a good way to dispose of the ash.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a good question and timely, too.
That's right.
There's a lot of people have already started having their fires when we have those cold nights. Yeah.
Have a great weekend. Take care. Okay, let's see. Our next caller is Bill, who's calling from Millerville, Maryland. A lot of Maryland calls today. Wake up, Virginia. Yeah. Are you there, Bill?
Hi, yes, I am. Good morning. Thank you for taking the call.
Great. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. My Sandy took our 20-year-old Christmas tree.
Oh, no.
Laid it down. It was beautiful, 17 feet high. Planted it when my grandson was born, so it's kind of a memorable thing. But we couldn't. It tore up the roots pretty well, so we laid down in my yard, so we had to take it out. But I decided to experiment and cut the top 7 feet or so, and it was beautiful, beautiful top part, little Christmas tree. So, and we kind of dug a hole, stuck it in the ground, and I'm looking at it saying, I wonder if, will it, it'll certainly last until, a few weeks, maybe until Christmas if I'm lucky, but my neighbors are telling me, no, it'll actually root. Is that a pipe dream, or what, or can I do anything to prolong it?
Oh, I don't want to answer this question, Debbie. It's just going to be nothing but disappointment and heartbreak for Bill.
Well,
that's a special tree.
I feel like he can take it. You can take it, Bill, right?
Right. Yeah. Now,
I could take it.
Yeah. So this is some type of a pine or spruce, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It is a spruce. Yeah.
Right. Now, enjoy it while it lasts. Just go out there, look at it. Think of it as an early Christmas tree, but it's going to shrivel up and die. Yeah. No, the conifers are built differently. Some of the hardwood trees and everything, again, I wouldn't start the 7-foot cutting, but they have buds that are capable of developing roots. On the conifer, like that spruce, it's just not capable of doing that. Its structure doesn't allow it. So if temperatures are cool, it may hang in there, and maybe you get to enjoy it as late as into the holidays, but it's just going to gradually dry up and die.
Okay, great. Well, then I won the bet with my neighbors. Then so I didn't think it would either, but I appreciate your comment.
Oh, good. Well, I hope they I hope you bet dinner or something like that on it.
Not quite.
Yeah, but that's creative. Enjoy it.
Unrelated question.
Sure.
I bought a couple of 3-gallon azaleas and a holly at 50% off half price thing. Here just recently, and the intention was we have a home in another home in West Virginia, just west of Winchester, and I was going to take them out there to plant them. But I could do that probably, but it's a kind of a vacation home,
right?
And we won't be able to keep them watered over the winter. How could I keep them here in Maryland over the winter? In their 3-gallon pots, and then take them out in the spring to plant them in West Virginia?
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. Those plants can stay in the 3-gallon pots, but you brought up the issue of watering, which really is the big deal here. I don't care if you plant in the fall or you plant next spring, somebody's going to have to be responsible for keeping those plants watered. At the garden center, we keep saying this is like a two-day-old baby when you take it and you put it in the ground, and you can't really expect it just to survive on its own or the rainfall that's out there. So whether it's you or if you have a friend or neighbor that's out there, somebody needs to go by, and I'm going to say check on those plants, every so often. In the fall or the winter, they're going to need to go by and say check on it at preferably once every week or two to make sure it hasn't dried out. If it's the summertime, they may have to check on it, like every 5 to 7 days. So you check the soil. If it's dry, somebody's going to need to be there to water it.
Right. But they'll winter over fine in Maryland here.
They'll winter over fine. They'll winter over fine in the pots. Again, when they're in the pots, they tend to dry out faster, so you may have to periodically check to make sure that they don't dry out. And if you can keep them out of a real windy, exposed location, that would be good. Winter damage is usually caused by desiccation, by drying out. It's not really the cold temperatures as much as it's just drying out. So as long as you watch the water, you'll be okay.
Bill, glad you brought that up because we've been talking about watering a lot at Merrifield this past year. It's a big topic and something that's really important. So thanks for your call. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Okay, Okay, let's get right back to our callers. Phyllis is calling from D.C. You there, Phyllis?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for holding. What can we do for you today?
I had a question also about watering plants that are going to be inserted this weekend. They're perennials. So in addition to composting to help soften, loosen up the soil, and I was going to put mulch on top, but you're saying that perennials need to be watered weekly.
No, what I was trying to say there is that you need to check them weekly. Because what happens, and it's good we're having this conversation, as you go into wintertime and your perennials are going dormant, your trees are going dormant, and so if you think of a plant that typically is taking water from the soil, moving it up and losing it through the leaves, so when they go into this resting state, they don't need as much water because they're not transpiring, they're not losing it. So frequently, a lot of times you plant them, you water them in really good, and frequently there's enough rain, sleet, snow, and that kind of thing that may keep them moist. But like last winter, as an example, was extremely dry. We didn't have any rain, no snow, no sleet, and we had plants drying out even during the winter time. So what happens is, I just can't give you an exact watering schedule. But on new plants, their roots are confined to that little root ball. They don't have that extensive root system like we saw in established trees. So it's important that that root ball is kept moist. And so I ask that you go out and you check on the plants periodically just to make sure they're moist. But you don't water it unless it actually needs water. So until that, you water it really well when you plant it, soak everything in real good and solid, then go back and check on it periodically. And if it starts to feel dry, that's the time to water it. So it's not a real schedule, but it's hard to say with all the different plants and environments.
And what's the advantage really of planting a rhododendron now versus, in the spring when you get the advantage of the color? I know that you get the evergreen color, but is there any, does the soil help to strengthen the bulbs at all, or is it just better to wait until the spring?
Well, the advantages to a fall planting, and this, again, it's no one answer, but the advantages to planting now, as I said, even as you go into November, December, maybe even early January, you still get some root growth and root development. So next spring, when the plants start into their growing season and flowering season, it's already had a few months to get some roots established. And usually during the winter time, typically, again, we are getting a lot of moisture, and so there's less stress on you and on the plant to keep it watered. But again, that varies year to year with our temperature conditions. Now the flip side of that is, again, a rhododendron. It's a broadleaf evergreen. It is transpiring. It's losing moisture through the leaves. So the greatest risk with a fall planting of a rhododendron is if you forget about it or you neglect it and it dries out. So if you're not going to be able to keep an eye on it, that might be something to cause you to postpone until spring.
Phyllis, thanks so much for your...
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Okay, our next caller is Rob, who's calling from Arlington, Virginia. All right, a Virginia call. Hey, Rob, how are you?
Hey, very well, and yourself?
Good, thanks.
Hey, quick question about forsythia plants. Our neighbor has planted a forsythia plant, and we haven't kept it up on our side of the property line, and neither has another neighbor. So it has gone ahead and crept into two neighbors' yard by about 10 feet and 10 feet high. So we're going to wait until it blooms one last time and then cut it back on our side of the property line.
Right.
What we wanted to do is to go ahead and put Roundup, an organic version of Roundup, so then the roots don't come back up. Would that just kill the roots on our property line, or would that creep over into our neighbors who want to keep the forsythia plant?
There really is no organic version of Roundup, so that's kind of the flaw in the plan. The organic herbicides that you're talking about, what they do is they don't translocate down into the roots. If you use one of the organic formulations, essentially it burns the leaves, but it does not translocate down into the root system, and so then it will come back and sucker back from the roots. If you use the true Roundup, the chemical version of it, then that does translocate back into the roots, but it will injure the entire plant, not just where you spray it. So it's this would be more work, but maybe the thing to do is if you have suckers or pieces that are coming up on your side of the property is literally to dig those out. That's more labor involved, but that's the only way I can think of to control it without actually killing or causing harm over to the neighbor's side.
Got you. All right then, thank you very much.
Okay. Not easy, but that's not a big job.
That's right.
And you can do that anytime.
Oh, that's great. Okay, have a great weekend. Thanks so much. Okay, Claudia is calling from Federal Heights. You there, Claudia?
Yes, I am.
We have
my call.
We have less than a minute. Do you have something quick?
Okay, yeah, I have knockout roses. They did good on one side, and the other side they didn't do good. They barely bloomed, and they look like they're dying. But when I bend them, they still have strength. They're not popping. Why did my knockout roses bloom?
Real quick, are they getting full sun on all sides of the plant?
Oh, okay. They're against the house.
Yeah, that's going to be something that happens, and it's really just because of lack of sunlight that's there. So we're going to have to go right now. But Claudia, there's really nothing you can do about that other than if you can figure out some way to get more sunshine into there. But that's okay. You still have the front of them that's looking real pretty.
That's great. Okay. Thank you for your call. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We hope you got a lot of great information out today. Next week, we will be talking about evergreens. We hope you'll come by this Thursday night to the Ladies' Night Out and enjoy the start to the holiday season. So have a great week. Take care.
See you next week.